We have a very dear friend, Param, who is going to be speaking to us today. Param is somebody I've known for a few years. Incidentally, just as a very quick introduction, if there was this whole thing called as the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan in India. If you do not know about that project, that means there is a mistake, or you're just not informed, or you're absolutely ill-informed about India. Because if there was one person who was responsible for the success of that program, that man is just exactly standing behind me, who's just trying to hide himself right now. So a large-scale project, which was a transformational project for the country. Of course, he has worked across the world. He was CEO for Niti Aayog, but now he's actually the executive director at the World Bank. But somebody who's actually created impact with large-scale projects within the country. A lot of us, we were talking about Amitabh Kant. He is more or less like him itself, not as a marketing salesman, as Subhashji was saying, but somebody who's a great doer and things. And it's just an honor to know him. And as I said somewhere in the beginning of the program as well, he's the person who actually created this idea in our minds that we should have dialogues or we should have conversations about India. So anything that goes wrong here is his responsibility. Everything that is right is my thing. So, but anyways, like Param, thanks a lot for joining, and it's just a pleasure and an honor to have you here today. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Amit. And I've also got to blame Amit for, it's fantastic to see so many people here. I told Amit that, look, post-tea on the second day, there's going to be no one here, but maybe Amit has just brought in a few students or others, I don't know. But it's really nice to have all of you here. And I also have to say, Subhash spoke about Amitabh, being a great salesman, God's own country, and in communist Kerala. So I'm hoping that this product, which I'm going to give you, doesn't need too much promotion. Hopefully it'll speak for itself. So wanted to frame the discussion. We've had a lot of, over the last couple of days about big macroeconomic reform. We heard about GST. We heard about the insolvency and bankruptcy code. A lot of, the GDP growth. And then in the morning, Sanjeev spoke about some process reforms. How things actually work on the ground, how we are streamlining processes. So I'm going to talk a little bit about a very big idea, a big, hairy, audacious goal, which the Prime Minister threw out early in his tenure, when, in fact, my wife and I were in Hanoi, in Vietnam, in the World Bank, and we heard him talk about, in his Independence Day speech, about the Swachh Bharat mission. And it's a very ambitious goal. So how, I'd say over the last decade, some very big ideas and policies have been translated into reality. And we spoke about scale and speed across the conference in different sectors. And I'm going to give you an example of the Swachh Bharat mission. It's about sanitation in India, which I think the lessons from which, and there are many colleagues here who are associated with this, I think the lessons go across different sectors, education, health, we can learn from this. And today in the World Bank, we're talking of a new knowledge compact where lessons from the global south, how they can be translated across the global south, but also to the global north. And so I'm going to take you through the Swachh Bharat mission, from the beginning, the lessons we learned, and how they can be applied to other sectors. So this was the challenge when this program started. You can see very big numbers here. You can see the magnitude of the problem, where coverage was very low, less than 40%, and not much had happened, over the preceding decades. And so, with that big number, more than 60% defecating in the open. We've got 600,000 villages, districts in a federal country. So a huge challenge, which needed to be recognized. And so far, incremental change had taken place. So now here you're going to see this one change, game-changing moment. I wanted to take you back to this clip.
भाइयों बहनों, आपको लगता होगा क्या लाल किले से सफाई की बात करना, लाल किले से टॉयलेट की बात बताना, ये कैसा प्रधानमंत्री है? भाइयों बहनों, मैं नहीं जानता हूं मेरी कैसी आलोचना होगी, इसे कैसे लिया जाए, लेकिन मैं मन से मानता हूं। मैं गरीब परिवार से आया हूं, मैंने गरीबी देखी, और गरीब को इज्जत मिले इसकी शुरुआत यहीं से होती है। और इसलिए स्वच्छ भारत का एक अभियान इसी 2 अक्टूबर से मुझे आरंभ करना है।
Okay, so that was the huge statement which took everyone by surprise. And, it was basically mission impossible till, the Prime Minister decided that he wanted it to actually happen. So these were the 4 S's which we faced when we started this program. Obviously, scale. And we heard a lot about behavior change in different sectors, education, health. At the heart of the Swachh Bharat mission was behavior change, but how do you do it at scale? And so to change that habit of 550 million people. Now, speed. The Prime Minister set a deadline of 2nd October 2019, which was the 150th birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. A very symbolic date, but it was a challenge. But in the end, we figured out it was, probably just about right. It was a little bit of the Goldilocks approach, not too long, not too short. But at that point of time, it looked impossible. Stigmas, right? And many of you would have seen this movie, Toilet Ek Prem Katha, which Akshay Kumar made. And, these beliefs which we have held for generations in India of, having a toilet at home is unclean, it's better to defecate in the open. So stigmas had to be dealt with, that is behavior change. And then finally, and critically, how do you sustain behavior change? And Cass Sunstein, his good friend, the co-author of Nudge, he came to India in 2018, and he was telling me, he said, Param, this is nudge at scale, but you got to make sure that you put in place mechanisms to sustain behavior change. So that was another challenge which we needed to face and which continues to be a challenge today. So briefly, how did we deal with each one of the S's, the scale? And, we heard a lot about technology, which is critical, and today's world, and as Amitabh said yesterday, technology helps to scale. In this case, technology was useful. We used it because we did virtual teaching on behavior change. But you also need boots on the ground for a subject like sanitation, which goes all the way down to the village and household level. So school students, by the way, we heard about retention of girl students. Girl students became huge ambassadors for Swachh Bharat. And in fact, the dropout rate of girls from primary to secondary significantly decreased because they had usable toilets in schools. But we used them as ambassadors. We had masons, right? Many women became masons in Jharkhand. They called them Rani Mistris. And so they went from being beneficiaries to actually getting an economic benefit out of sanitation. Swachhagrahis, again, the term coined by the Prime Minister himself. These were village motivators, one in every village, trained in behavior change and retrained again. And so the PM said, why don't we call them Swachhagrahis on the lines of Satyagrahis? Sarpanches, the elected local body leaders, district collectors, 700 played a very crucial role in this. Then we had young professionals. The Tata Trust funded these young professionals who made a huge difference. So we put them in every district. They worked with the collectors, and they managed to get the whole behavior change thing moving. And then, of course, our brand ambassadors from Amitabh Bachchan to Sachin Tendulkar, Akshay Kumar. So we had to whip up a lot of excitement. So we had brand ambassadors. And to be very honest, one communicator-in-chief. I mean, the Prime Minister had lost no opportunity to talk about Swachh Bharat. And that was really the wind at our back. And so, he was leading this. Now, speed, right? Important, we've heard in many cases, we needed to get some low-hanging fruit, some quick wins. So when we started, we said, there were only about 15 or 16 districts out of 700 which were ODF. That word came into the jargon, right? Open defecation free. And so you can see that the middle part of India is all brown. We had basically, Kerala was doing very well, Himachal, Uttarakhand, and there was a district in Gujarat and one in Bengal. So we said, let's get those things moving. Let's get other districts. Let's get some quick results which can demonstrate that this thing is doable. And so we focused on that demonstration effect, created some champions, and got young collectors to speak to each other. Okay, on stigmas, again, this was obviously the major challenge in Swachh Bharat. How do you get people to understand the importance of using toilets from a health point of view? You didn't need to convince the women and girls about the stigma and the shame of going out in the open, in the dark. But overall, targeting elderly men, why do you need to use toilets, was quite challenging. So we also came up with the concept of a twin pit, leach pit toilet. And this is actually an environmentally friendly toilet where the water leaches into the soil, the pathogens don't spread, and it's two pits. One pit closes, and you can actually empty it after a year and a half. So I entered a pit in Warangal in early 2017 to show that you can clean your own toilet. And salesman Shaucha Singh was another ad we used to promote sanitation. Neeraj knows about this. Neeraj was working with us before he moved to another job. And then, of course, Toilet Ek Prem Katha. And Akshay Kumar was a super brand ambassador for us. We used him to talk to collectors. Sachin was rewarding the best collectors. So it was a whole movement. But top-down communication by the brand ambassadors, but critically bottom-up, village-level interpersonal communication to make sure that every village understood the importance of sanitation and took it upon themselves to make their village ODF. So this is about the stigma. That's the twin pit which I referred to, which is still going strong. It's a low-cost individual household latrine, IHHL, and it costs about 12 to 15,000 rupees. So you can see here how the bottom-up, on the ground, the sarpanchas, the community approach, the face-to-face communication, but we also use technology. You see the virtual classrooms. We had a digital database of 180 million beneficiaries. And we could get in touch with them, find out from them if they had any complaints, they could refer it to the district. So I think this part of the program perhaps was the one we focused upon the most. How do you change behavior and how do you do it at scale? And then, of course, as I said, how do you sustain behavior change? Very, very difficult. And because you can sort of campaign in poetry, but when you govern, it's in prose. And so on a day-to-day basis, when the village has become open defecation free, how do you know people are not still going out? How do you know some toilets are not being dysfunctional? And people would report, hey, this village has been declared ODF, I see 3 people going out. It'll happen, right? It's a dynamic process, and you've got to keep working at it. And therefore, we thought it would make sense in the next phase of Swachh Bharat, which is going on now, to focus on what we call ODF plus, which is looking at a broader definition of sanitation, not just on open defecation free, on toilets and usage, but also on solid and liquid waste management, whether it's plastic waste or organic waste. And actually, that's being funded by the government again. Under the 15th Finance Commission, there are funds earmarked for sanitation to sustain all the gains which have been made. So now it's functioning at an ODF plus stage, and we call that Swachh Bharat Phase 2. Okay, so now it's late in the afternoon, and I thought I would share some of these insights, but also make it a bit of, and please don't, if you know the answers, please don't respond. I was going to ask you, some of the lessons we learned, what is the A, B, C, D, E, F of implementation at scale? Okay, so anyone can guess what is A? Anyone, let's see how alert you are and how good you are. Okay, this is a big program thrown out by the Prime Minister, announced. So what is A? So as the implementers, what is A? Not awareness. Not aspiration. Not action. No. Not ambition. Okay, let me give you this one. A stands for align. So look, it's very, very important to align with the vision of this head, the CEO, right? You got to align. And to be honest, when I joined my ministry, so I came back from the bank in March 2016, and we didn't have alignment in my own ministry because my additional secretary, and Subhash will probably know his name, so I won't name him, he said, sir, sanitation is a state subject, right? So if Government of India announcing this program, state governments have to deliver. Why should we be held accountable for something the state has to deliver? He had a bit of a point. But I said, listen, I've just come back, and Subhash was also instrumental in getting me back, so I've got to thank Subhash, who was in my job in the bank at that time. And I said, listen, we've got to deliver. The PM has announced this program, so I'm not going to go and tell him this is the state government's responsibility. So I think alignment is critical. And what we call the PM, CM, DM, VM, I'm from the UP cadre of the IAS, and we have a saying there that there are only 3 good jobs in India: PM, CM, and DM. DM is district magistrate. And then to sort of bring in the village, we added VM, the village mukhia. So if you can get that axis aligned, you can make lots of things happen in India, right? Even today. So we followed that model. And again, this became really important. Our job was to align with that and get everyone aligned to the vision, and which the Prime Minister throws. A is align. Okay, what is B? Believe. Fantastic. Believe. Excellent. It absolutely comes. So you're right. So it's believe. So everyone had to believe that this thing is doable, right? Because if you start, continuing being a skeptic, it's not going to happen. So we had to have belief that this thing can happen, first within our own team, and then all the way down. In a federal system like India, we saw how the GST brought together all the states onto one platform. This is very, very important in India. And there are some states which have different political parties leading them. And that was a challenge for all of us. But if you can get alignment with the basic idea, it makes a huge difference, and belief. Youth in the system was very important. So we created this cadre of our Preraks, Zilla Swachh Bharat Preraks, the young professionals in the field. They made a big difference. And then setting some milestones and actually achieving them, which increased the belief. C is easy.
Change.
No.
Collaborate.
Communicate. You're doing very well. You should have been making this presentation. Communication. Okay, so communicate. Look, this program, communication was a critical part of behavior change, right? So, there are different levels of communication. You can talk of mass media, interpersonal communication, but at the heart of this program was communicating. And so this one became absolutely critical, grassroots level and then mass media level. So top down, these were, we were, using Water Aid, when Neeraj was working, a whole number of agencies, NGOs, CBOs, universities, students, and so communication became very, very important. So it became a kind of mass movement. Okay, let's see what do we have now. What's D?
Design.
This one I bet no one will get. It's a bit of a cop out, but you'll understand why. Any others? No.
Delegate.
Close, Pranjal. You're doing well. Almost. Actually, it's not. No, it's very close. See, what we meant was take it to the lowest level, but the only word we could think of was democratize. So what we meant was take it down, right? Take it down to the lowest appropriate level. And in this case, it was critical that the villages took this project in hand, right? It became a thing of prestige, that our village is going to become ODF before the neighboring village. And it became very, very important to have that self of pride in the community. And so, if you want to do this Jan Andolan thing, the Prime Minister is very big on that. It was very important to take it down. And a lot of campaigns were done throughout the year, whether it was Swachhata Hi Seva, typically in September, October, Chalo Champaran. So we had to keep the buzz, we had to keep the excitement going. And the lower the level it was happening, the more effective it was. Okay, I'm going to show you a clip of this program which we did in Bihar. Bihar was struggling. And what happened was, it was not really making much movement. So we decided that we would take 20,000 Swachhagrahis from across India and unleash them for 1 week in Bihar. And then get the Prime Minister to address them, to motivate them. So this program we call Chalo Champaran. It coincided with the 100th anniversary of Gandhi's Champaran movement. So 10th April 2018. That's the date, and this is a little clip about that program.
गांव गांव और गली गली, गांव गांव और गली गली, गांव गांव और गली गली,
नई हवा चली, नई हवा चली, नई हवा चली।
हर दिल ने ठानी है, हर दिल ने ठानी है, सफाई गांव में लानी है। अब काम करेंगे बात नहीं, साफ नहीं तो माफ नहीं।
अब काम करेंगे बात नहीं, साफ नहीं तो माफ नहीं। अब काम करेंगे बात नहीं, साफ नहीं तो माफ नहीं। काम करेंगे बात नहीं, साफ नहीं तो माफ नहीं। काम करेंगे बात नहीं, साफ नहीं तो माफ नहीं।
So, I already revealed. E is evaluate. Okay. So we found out very early. Look, there are skeptics, and people will say it's not happened, it's all bogus, etc., etc. So it is important. It's not perfect, but I can tell you it's pretty good. So evaluate. And we had a lot of studies done by external agencies. So if the government says something, maybe you won't take it so seriously. So some very interesting studies. So for example, there was a study by UNICEF, if you see the top right one, which found that every household would save about 50,000 rupees in an ODF village on account of avoided medical fees, time saving, real estate value. It saves lives, WHO study, environment. So we did a number of these. The World Bank was monitoring it every year. And so it was important to evaluate, E. And the last one, F. Let's see if anyone gets this. Who said follow up? Fantastic. Perfect. Follow up. Brilliant. So you got to follow through, right? Because if you see this cartoon, we had Sudhir Dar. We used to bring out a Swachh Bharat cartoon calendar till the government finally shut down all calendars. Subhash, I don't know whether it was after your time. They said no more non-Sarkari calendars. This one is Sudhir Dar at his best. And you can see here where the young kid is pulling back the grandfather and saying, please use the toilet. So it's important to follow through what are the mechanisms to sustain the continued behavior change, the capacity building. So, and it's not a destination. So many people think at any point of time, there will be people who are still going out. It's a dynamic process, but you got to keep at it. Okay, so this is just to show you once again what is the ABCDEF. And now, since you're hovering around Amit, I'm going to go through very quickly. Now, again, these are the outcomes, right? So when we started, you can see the red map and then the green map. And of course, that green will change a bit, but broadly, this is what happened over those 5 years. Okay, now, important to share these lessons globally. So we had an international conference where ministers from 55 countries of health and sanitation came and visited India in October 18 to understand a little bit more and to see what they could learn. And the minister of Nigeria went back and they started the Clean Nigeria campaign based on this program. China, I was in China 3 weeks ago. They have got a Clean China program going on, again, influenced by another large country, a neighboring country like India. So we spoke about the 4 Ps. Political leadership, right? I mean, the term is bandied about a lot. Absolutely critical. And then public financing. I've got to thank colleagues like Subhash, who understood that there's a return on sanitation, scarce resources, he's managing the budget, where do you put your money? So when they saw the program working, they started putting in more funds into it. Total investment in Swachh Bharat is about $20 billion, half state and center, but a lot of money was put in. So this is important because in many countries, the Minister of Health comes and tells me, can you convince our president to put in money? Because the finance minister of Nigeria is not giving the money because he doesn't know there's a 5:1 return on sanitation by way of health. So I'm saying, so this was very, very important. And Subhash was there at the time, so he can tell you about that. And then partnerships with academia, with civil society, with NGOs. This was not a Sarkari program by any means. That's a picture of the ministers and the Prime Minister on October 2nd, 2018. Uma Bharti ji was my minister at the time. And then people's participation, right? It had to be full involvement of people, otherwise this thing wouldn't have worked. So those were the 4 Ps, and there's a book on that which is called the Swachh Bharat Revolution, which tells you a little bit about that. And I just wanted to end by saying there's a case study on this. I used to be a professor of management studies at IIM Ahmedabad, and we wrote a case study which is now shared between IIMA and Harvard. So if you want to get a more dispassionate, more analytical look at this program, please take a look at that. Thank you very much.
I think, Param, just stay back for a second.
Okay.
I think, like the transformational effect that this thing has had on India is absolutely immense. I can see it with my eyes. We see it in villages. We see it in states and districts. I think for the thing that he has done, he might be very silent. He needs a standing ovation for what he has achieved for India, please. Thank you.